We are now recording. So again, welcome to our webinar on Standing in Your Truth with the lovely Amanda Perrone here from Rise with Amanda. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us. And we've brought you in on this topic specifically because I know that you deal a lot with the spiritual world and health and all sorts of wonderful things. Before we start to get into that and how you can help us specifically, can you really define for us specifically what does it mean to stand in your truth?
Sure, and let me just say thanks again, Ella, so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure working with you guys and getting here and online with you. And I know it's obvious because your company is called How to Organize That, but you are just so top-notch and efficient and organized, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you.
So far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So to answer your question, standing in your truth, right? What does it really mean? And I was kind of reflecting on that as I was getting ready to come up and come online here. And I think it's really an evolution, standing in your truth. It's a process that takes place as we change, as we shift, as we grow, and as we get to know ourselves. So it's kind of twofold. We have to get to know ourselves. Know thyself is such an important part of standing in your truth, and accepting yourself and really loving that. And it goes right in line with the theme of Self-Love Month, because I think standing in your truth is one of the most loving gifts you can give to yourself. But in order to get there, you have to really know what that truth is.
So how do we go about finding out what our truth is? How do you really know what your truth is and it's not come from other people's beliefs or stemmed from other people's experiences, which was so often influenced by Amanda?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a huge part of it, right? And back to what I just said, it being an evolution, I think we come back to our truth. We know our truth in the beginning, right? As these ripe young children that are growing up in this world, we know what matters to us. We know what's important to us and what's true to us. But those perceptions get shaped and shifted and changed based on, the country we're born in, the type of family we're born in, the values of that family, and then, of course, our peer system, and depending on where you go to school, where you grow up, right? All of that's going to change. And as you get older, you start to get a sense of what's important to you. And that comes through experience, really. It's the only way to get there. The only way out is through. I say that often. And the only way to your truth is navigating what is not true for you. Having experiences where you don't stand in your truth and you have to deal with the effects of the fallout of that, not just for yourself, but for the people around you, for your family, for the people you love. And as you see that, you start to get more clear on what's important to you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And as you're talking now, I'm thinking, well, how do you deal with the real consequences of standing in your truth? Because sometimes we can a very singular opinion in a large group of people who have very, very different opinion. And it's a lot of strength to stand in your truth in that scenario and then potentially get affected by the effect it has on other people, because like you say, it has that ripple effect. So how do you bypass that?
Well, I mean, I don't know that you can always bypass the effect it's going to have, but you have to accept that it is your truth. And I think remembering that your truth is based on your perception is really helpful in that, right? And the same goes for the people who are affected by your truth. They have their own perception of their values, what's true to them, what is okay for them. And you're not going to always align with everybody. And that's okay, because at different stages in your evolution, you're going to, be triggered by those people, and they're going to be triggered by you. But really, that's a gift. And I know we'll get more into that, but that's a real gift that you can give to people.
So how do you go from, and I'm sure, Amanda, this has been through a habitual practice for you to get to this point where you can really feel like you can speak your truth. Have you been in a situation where you haven't, and it's had the consequences, and that big realization of really stood up for what I believed in then, and your perception, your beliefs, and your experience?
Oh yeah. I have so many examples that I can give you of times in my life where I did not stand in my truth, and how it affected me. Gosh, okay, let's just pull one of them, one of the many, was after I had my son. This is one of the most obvious ones that stands out to me. So after I had my son, I wanted to have children, for years, and I was married previously and tried and wasn't able to, and then married again, and successfully had a baby. And it took me all in almost 6 years to have my son. And pregnancy wasn't easily come by for me, and I wasn't able to always stay pregnant. And so all of this happened, and then lo and behold, we had this miracle of our baby Ben, who came to us, and I held the pregnancy and became a mom. And after I had Ben, I knew in my heart that I was not going to be okay with going back to my corporate job. I worked corporate for 15 years. And while I was pregnant to Ben, my mom had also had a stroke. So I was kind of, we're that sandwich generation of dealing with our parents and dealing with our children. And I was going through that. And the year of maternity leave that I had was really just true bliss for me. And I loved being home. I loved being there with my son. And I knew that for me, I wanted to stay home. And that is not a truth for everybody. And that's not a truth that I was comfortable with, because that's not how I was raised. I was raised in a dual income family. I had worked really hard for my corporate job and worked my way up over 15 years. And I had difficulty at the time really facing that truth and what it meant. And I wasn't able to articulate it and to really tell the truth about how I was feeling. I knew I did not want to go back to work, but fear, which we'll get into, like the reasons why people don't always speak their truth, but for me in that instance, fear was definitely the motivator for me in not speaking my truth. Because if I didn't work, what would that mean? What was the point of my education? What would my parents think? How would I support my family? I was the primary breadwinner of our family at the time. So how would I support my family? And then, of course, all of the layers of, am I going to be able to be a good example for my child if I'm not working? And I had to deal with all of that. And I couldn't. And so I went back to work. And I could feel myself slipping. I felt it starting to happen. I was going back into self-sabotaging patterns, slipping into numbing patterns, anything to escape, because I was pulled in so many different directions, and I was not standing in my truth and saying what was really important to me was that I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm. And how long were you feeling like that, Amanda, before you acted upon it?
I went back to work. It was almost a year that I was back to work. And I had what I call a moment of lunacy, which I have to go back and check, because I'm sure it was on the full moon. But I had this moment of lunacy sitting at work. And I was in a really important meeting that I had planned. I was needed to be present. And I got a call from the daycare that my son had a fever and needed to be picked up. And so I called my father, because I was working downtown Toronto, and so is my spouse. And I called my father, who then tells me my mom's just had a severe seizure and needed to be taken to the hospital, so they couldn't help me out with my son. And I looked to my boss, who said, "I'm sorry, I need you here." And I said, "I'm sorry, I quit." And I walked out that day, and not something that I would recommend to anyone. I actually didn't even have the conversation with my spouse that I was going to be doing that. Poor man was at Canada's Wonderland and got a text from me saying, I just quit my job. I'm sorry. We'll talk about it when I get home. But yeah, I mean, it led to, I can joke about it now, but at the time, it was an extremely emotional decision. And, I rode home in a taxi cab crying the whole way there, saying, like, how am I going to do this? And how did I get here? I had a lot of guilt about the fact that I allowed this to go on for a year, to the point where I was in a really negative headspace, and as I said, going into numbing patterns, and it was causing a lot of pain for me.
And that's a whole year of fear, and possibly a lot before, during maternity leave, thinking, this is not what I want to do. This is what's perceived as the right thing to do. That must have been really challenging. So we're talking about your authentic self, facing fear of being judged by others, and goodness, societal norms, and all sorts of...
And our own values too, right? Our own values. I believed it was important that I work because, that's what I was taught. Now, I believe it's important I contribute, absolutely, but I get that there are other ways to contribute to my family, right? There's other ways that I can work. But at the time, I had to reconcile with my own value system too, which was telling me oh no, you're a failure if you don't go back to your job. You're a failure. If you can't do it all, Amanda, you're a failure because, everyone else is doing it all. Perception, right?
Right. We were having a discussion just a few days ago with a lady that I coach about the narcissism of Facebook, and if you look at how happy people are, perceived even sad, when actually they're really, really quite happy because of the social. It's really challenging, and people who really do stand in their truth can, again, with a fear of judgment, but it can have such beautiful rewards. We have a few questions in, Amanda. Do you mind if I take a quick look at them?
Sure. Yeah. Please.
Okay. In your experience, what is the biggest roadblock for people when it comes to speaking their truth?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. It usually comes down to three things. First, what we talked about, fear, right? So all of those fears, it's false evidence appearing real. That's my favorite acronym for fear. There's all sorts of them, but false evidence appearing real really translates for me. Because we create this false evidence, right? Like the example I was giving you, that I would be a failure, right? I wouldn't be able to support my family. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I did. And that was the false evidence that appeared real to me, which stunted me from speaking in my truth, right? And standing in that truth for myself. So that's definitely one of the biggest roadblocks I see in myself and in my clients. I would say secondary gain is another roadblock. I don't know if it's actually a roadblock, but a reason why people can't always stand in their truth. Because secondary gain, it's this concept that you're getting something out of it. So maybe you're not speaking the truth, but there's a reason. You have ulterior motive because it's allowing you to continue with something in some way. And that's a tricky one, because that really takes a lot of self-discovery and a lot of honesty with thyself about who you are and why you're doing the things you're doing. So secondary gain is always something you want to look at if you're finding it difficult to speak your truth. Is there a reason? Is it keeping me safe? Am I getting something out of not telling the truth? Right? Yeah, and I think those are the two main ones that I would say.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, because there's two things about standing in your truth. It's standing in your truth with yourself and having that real acceptance that, okay, I'm going to be really honest with me, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, this is my truth. This is how I feel. This is my belief system. And accepting that that's okay, to be honest with you, because sometimes we can have that perception that we're being honest with others, but are we really, as you're saying it, do you really feel, mean, and trust what you're saying about yourself as well?
And actually, that makes me think of another point, that maybe sometimes the roadblock is maybe you just truly don't know. Because I've seen that happen too, right? Where someone will attach to a truth, right? Or whatever, and maybe not attach to a truth. They don't stand in their truth because they really don't know yet. And that comes from not taking the time to do the personal work, and we don't know. That, again, it's evolution of allowing yourself the room to grow and change. But I do think, a little patience is required at times too with yourself to know that maybe you really just don't know or didn't know.
Mm-hmm. And would you suggest a period of discovery like that? I had a conversation with someone just a few days ago about, and you've heard this adage before, that the direct result of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and you start to come out of your comfort circle and spend time with people with other belief systems and opinions and their perceptions. That sometimes you can, I've opened myself up to other things out there that actually makes me question my belief system because it's not based on experience. Like you said, it's from my teachers believe, my parents believe, the next door neighbor, the people who have had that high influence in your life.
Sure.
Let's go back to the secondary gain for a second.
Sure.
How does it come in? So someone's written here, how does it come in specifically to play when speaking or not speaking the truth? Let me read that again. I hope that I've got it right. Write it if this isn't, not reading it out right here. What really is secondary gain, and how does it come into play when speaking or not speaking the truth? And I read that as kind of an example of what that really means.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's a good question. So like I said, secondary gain is definitely one of the trickier ones to work through and to figure out because you have to look in. So let's think of an example of secondary gain. So drinking. I'm going to use drinking as an example. So you know that you're drinking too much wine at night, and you know that you probably shouldn't be doing that. But your spouse is eating as well at night. Okay, so you both have like a tandem numbing out effect. Rather than bringing to the attention to your spouse or to yourself, right, that you guys are doing this, that you have this numbing pattern, maybe you don't say anything. Maybe you keep it to yourself. Or maybe, let's just even say they're also drinking with you and you know that it's causing a problem in the family.
Right.
But you keep that to yourself. You're too afraid to say anything. And that's often because you don't want to stop drinking. That would be an example of secondary gain. If you bring light to the fact that there's an issue and you have to speak the truth about the fact that there's an issue, well, you might not be able to have that glass of wine that you have gotten used to having.
Right.
When you turn the TV on at night and the kids have gone to bed. So you don't speak up. That's secondary gain right there. It allows you to stay stuck because you're comfortable there. And this is why it's
almost
challenging.
Self-sabotage. You're enabling yourself. That's
totally.
Really, that's
yeah.
Really,
yeah, and I'm and gentle because we do this. It's very natural, and you find as you evolve and you get more conscious, you'll stop to do that. But just be gentle with yourself if you're noticing that you're in a bit of a cycle of that. We all go through it. Secondary gain is something we all have to go through to get to the other side.
Yeah, and I like the way you said it right at the very start. You gotta push through it.
Yeah, you really do.
I've heard it referred to as the squeeze. You go through that. It's a bit like growing your hair out, right? Yeah. Frustrating. Oh, I have to admit it. Right. Okay, now I'm actually going to speak my truth, and it's it almost squeezed through the self-sabotage, the limiting beliefs, and all the different things.
And it's a release, right? Like, I love that term, the squeeze, because I see the squeeze. I'm very visual, right? So I see the squeeze and it just like blowing up into a massive release, because that's what it does,
It is. I'm very visual too, and I always feel like I'm climbing through that door that you can't really fit through, and then you kind of go bing out the other side.
Totally.
Through the door.
Yeah. Totally.
We talked about that previously. Oh yes, it's time for tea. Cheers. What else is drinking tea?
My friend.
Drinking tea or even a tipple. Those who have raised their hands. Okay, let's have a look at some of this here. Oh, great question. Why are you so passionate about the truth, Amanda?
Oh gosh, because it set me free. Because it set me free. It's that simple. The truth always sets you free. It creates opportunities. It opens doorways. It cuts through so much quicker. It's efficient. It's effective. I'm extremely passionate about it. It has gotten me to where I am today.
Awesome. And especially if you look at that story, now you're able to be the mother that you wanted to be without, and you went through that squeeze of having to go into the corporate job on a day-to-day basis thinking, it's not really where I want to be, and you're living proof of that. We can see how happy and...
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Another good question. How can I start to get more comfortable using my voice?
Well, I started with a truth journal. That was the way I started at first, was I would actually go ahead and write out my truth for myself. And I started there, a safe place where I could practice telling the truth. And then I started in like little incremental ways of speaking my truth. I had a habit. I was a fibber. Like it was, we often excuse like kind of the white lies, right? And I was a bad fibber for a long time, where if I, just didn't want to do something, I would lie about why I couldn't do it and things like that. So I would just notice it first. That would be my first suggestion to you, because we don't want to get caught in judgment. When you're trying to shift or change, judgment, shame, guilt, it's the stopper. It always keeps you stuck, and it serves no purpose. It serves no purpose. It holds you back. And you want to become the conscious observer of your actions. And so a journal is a great way to start by doing that. So noticing when you're not speaking the truth and asking why. Why wasn't I comfortable here? What was I afraid of? What motivated me to not speak the truth? And go through those three things we talked about, right? Fear? Was it secondary gain? Or do I maybe just not know? And then from there, you can take some action steps, because if you know it's fear, false evidence appearing real, then we have a process. I have a process I take clients through where we break down what that false evidence is, and I get them to prove to themselves that it's not true. Then they can take action, right? And so on and so forth. You can go through those different steps of what's happening. And then I would say, start to practice with people who love you, people who
Safe
maybe they'll
environment.
be triggered. Yeah, a safe environment. Maybe they won't like your truth, but it's not going to have massive consequential effects on your life at the moment, right? Like walking in and saying to your boss, I quit, right? That had a major consequence in my life. Saying to my spouse, you know what? I lied to you and said I was fine. I'm actually not fine, and here's why.
Mm.
Good opportunity, right? To safely and slowly start releasing some of your truth.
And when you do that, you do often find, Amanda, then that you almost give them permission to also stand in their own truth because then you're now in that space of talking from a position of truth.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why I connect so well with people because I'm so honest and my eyes don't lie. You can really see the truth reflected in my eyes when I'm talking to you, and it gives people permission and space to do the same thing back with me. And yeah, it's a real gift that you can give to somebody to speak your truth.
So you can start an epidemic of the truth.
It's totally. It's like a ripple, right? We know that like attracts like, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and giving people an opportunity to do their work. Yeah, it's awesome.
I really like that. If you're talking about lacking, I have another person say they really like the fact that you said that money isn't the only contribution. That's another contribution,
Yeah.
allowing people permission to be themselves in front of you. And it sounds so simple to say it out loud, but it's really not. And we often operate in groups of
Yeah.
people not being true to
Yeah.
themselves, and then find out the truth. You say, oh, you know what? I believe that too, but I was too scared to say anything. And it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Totally.
It's, very interesting.
Yeah.
So sharing that. Let's have a look at some of the questions here. Um, what other gifts has, let me make sure I'm reading this right. What other gifts has your truth brought you, Amanda?
Yeah, yes. Confidence. Yeah, confidence. It's brought me through, it set me free, definitely, but it's also given me a lot of confidence and trust in myself. Like I don't feel afraid often anymore, and I'm never caught off guard. I mean, of course I can be at times, but I'm not often caught off guard because I'm so sure of how I feel and what's important to me. That's been a real gift that exercising my voice and exercising my truth has given me because now when someone comes at me, I can very quickly tell them what I think. And so, yeah, confidence has definitely been a ripple effect of speaking my truth.
And that's essentially through practice.
Oh, totally. Oh,
So
yes, totally.
where's my belief system? We won't go too much into it, but the political scenario of the world right now was a huge
Hmm.
example of that. A lot of people hiding out
Yeah,
to contribute for fear of judgment and no matter what side they're going on to. And there's that old adage that you're going to get. I'm trying to think, it's one of the old US presidents that said it, no matter what you say, you will be judged. Step
mm.
truth of opinion. And I wish I could remember who said it. I just love all those quotes like that. I'm going to find out.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe put it into the recording there. But yeah,
yeah.
stop ripple effect and really that truth journal. I really, really like that.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking about too, it talks about how your truth might trigger somebody, right? And I'm glad you said that because I wanted to mention that because it comes up a lot. People ask me like, oh, okay, well, my truth might trigger somebody or it might make them feel uncomfortable or unhappy. And to that, I often say, like, it might sound a little cold, but it's not your concern. It's not your concern. I think our
Right.
purpose in life is to show up as exactly who we are, and if you trigger people in a positive way, fantastic. And if you trigger people in a negative way, fantastic. Because it's all work. It's all work and it's all
Right.
growth. And it's really important to understand that. And that is how you shift your perception and really start to be able to speak your truth, is when you get what a gift it is for somebody. And I always give this example. Do we have time still? If I want to give
Yes,
an example?
absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I always give this example about speaking your truth when it comes to like networking meetings and things like that. So when you connect with somebody and you know that you are not in alignment, right? And this is from personal experience. When I first kind of came into the networking community, I'm a holistic health coach as well. So I would often have people approach me who had products that they wanted me to sell for them. And I won't name any of the products, but I'm sure we can imagine like different nutrition supplements and things like that.
Mm.
And I was really uncomfortable saying no because I was afraid that it might trigger somebody, that they might feel less than, or like they weren't selling a good product or things like that. And I would waste their time. So people would ask me out to coffee and say, oh, let's sit and talk about this opportunity. And I would know full well that I was never going to do it. It wasn't comfortable for me. Not because I didn't believe in the product, let's say, but because I'm not good at sales. Like, sales has been something that's not really, I'm not interested in that. And I didn't want to do it. And I knew that, but I would go and waste their time and go to these meetings with them and go and have coffee. And I started thinking about like just all the wasted energy. And if I could just be honest with them out front and outright, how much time it would save them. And that motivated me to start speaking my truth, because I was seeing, like, for example, I would say yes to somebody who has to hire a babysitter, who then has to come out and drive from their house to meet me at Tim Hortons to have coffee with me, when I knew the whole time I was not comfortable and I was going to say no. So start to understand it like that, how it affects other people, how when you speak your truth, it can actually be, or like when you don't speak your truth, it can be detrimental to the other person.
You're right. You're doing a disservice to other people. You're absolutely. And it's understanding, you've said it a few times, just to reiterate, that it's that ripple effect. And the people that they are no longer can spend the time with because they spent time with you, and they're lost, and so on and so forth. It's really understanding the consequence of your actions, kind of when you go back to that. And from a sales perspective, it is hard. It's like a little bit like going through a market and you have all these sellers go, smell my perfumes, and you just want to say, oh, gosh, that's marvelous, let me buy it.
Totally.
We've all done it, right? We've gone through the stores and kind of got, drank the Kool-Aid and gone, oh, this is really exciting, I must have all these products, and gone home and gone, I don't really want to do this. It's like going to the big box stores and you're going for a loaf of bread and you walk out of there with a new TV and a fridge, right?
Yeah. Yes.
We've all done it. You've gone for one thing, lots of other things. Maybe because of persuasion and the fear of, there's a few hands going on there.
Yeah. No doubt, yeah.
No, I'm only here for this. This is what I'm here. And it's and Amanda, you and I have talked, and I know you talk a lot in your moon groups, which we'll get to in just a second here, about setting intentions and having that ahead of time, that here's my intention with this meeting, and let's not waste our time doing anything outside. Here's my intention. I would love to know more about what you do and learn from you, as opposed to buy a product, and having those truthful conversations as well, and knowing ahead of time what that is and what your intentions are. And get back to you said about the lunacy.
Yeah.
You made that decision, that's it, and I quit. And just to reiterate, do not try this at home potentially. It might not work out for you as well as it did for Amanda, but how do the moon cycles kind of affect how you are perceived, maybe, or how you feel? Or is there certain times where maybe you shouldn't really act upon things and contemplate things a little bit more? Can you tell us more about that, Amanda?
Yeah, sure. I would love to, of course. I love talking about the moon. So for those of you who don't know what I do, I teach women about the rhythms and cycles of the moon and how it corresponds to our bodies, and how we can really capitalize and utilize universal energy when we're trying to create and manifest. And so definitely, yes, there are certain times of the month that are geared towards manifestation. Right now, for example, is the ideal time. Yesterday and today, they're the ideal times to be setting intentions of how we want to feel. The moon is new right now, and actually the crescent moon, one of my women in my moon group just sent me a picture of the crescent moon. It's already out. And so this is when the moon is starting to grow. So we see this little crescent, and it's going to start to wax. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the cycle. And the same happens for us. Our intentions begin to grow and grow and grow until we reach a pinnacle in and around the full moon. And that is when we begin to release. So the ideas are born in the first half of the cycle. We reach the pinnacle where we begin to release, and then we wane, and we start to drift and let things go. So release, people often think of it as like an emotional release, and it is, definitely. We're letting go of emotions, things that no longer serve us, but it's also really positive things. So the ideas that we implanted and the seeds that we grew in this new moon phase, we are also releasing after the moon goes full. And so that's an ideal time to be coming out with new projects, new plans for your business, things like that. And then after that, go ahead.
So sorry. So just to So we're talking about the moon cycles, and then we're standing in our truth. Then, so is that a good time then in that release section? So if we spend a long time going, okay, so these are my opinions, and yes, I'm going to stand by them, and to kind of throw away old perceived feelings and say, okay, that perception no longer serves me. That's
Yes.
not how I want to see the world, or not what I want to do. So that actually would be a good time to kind of
Yes, absolutely. Full moon would be a great time to start to release those truths because they've been growing, right? And so lunacy, this term lunacy, it's about the full moon, right? So when the moon goes full, when we release for the first time, if we have never let it out before, it can seem like lunacy. So for example, in my example that I was giving you at work, right, it was building and building, and it was building from pregnancy, Ella. It was building pre-pregnancy.
Wow.
Because I just knew I wanted this so bad. I wanted those early years home. It was a dream that I had always had. And so it was building from pregnancy. And then it built in that first year of maternity leave. And then it continued to build and wax and wax and wax until I blew up and walked out of a 15-year career without even, thinking about it. Just walked. And so that is an example of releasing lunacy,
Oh, I'm sure we've all been in that moment and done. Raise your hand if you've been in a moment. Just literally press that button.
Yeah.
You've been in a moment, just done something so great. Yeah, hand. I think we've got 91% of people, and those are the 9%
Oh, yeah.
not admitting to it. Truth.
Awesome. I'm glad I'm in good company.
It's nice to know the reason behind that then. So it's almost the emotional release. It's almost like the rubber band, right? And you have all this build up. But if you know ahead of time, okay, so now I'm going to make a decision that, this job I'm in right now doesn't serve me. I want to start looking for a new job. I'm going to release the past and the fact that I thought that I had to stay in this job. And now I'm going to work forward and get into that mission mode. And
totally. Like if I had been my own client, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. If I had been my own client, I would have sat and worked with me through a few cycles. And in that new moon, fresh energy, we would have set intentions on how I wanted to feel, which was connected to my child and connected to my partner and, all of those things. And why was that important to me? We would definitely work on that. And then in full, we would work on ways that I can get myself there and ways that I could take action to get myself there, for sure.
So in each different month, and you do these new moon cycle groups, as you know, Amanda. And do you focus on one particular subject for that month, or do you just work through the entire month with the times that's best for doing certain things? Like, how does it work? If I get interested in the moons, how would I follow that process?
Yeah, so we do both, to answer your question. So in a month with the moon, what I do is I take women through a full 28-day moon cycle. So we start on the new moon and we go through to what's called the dark moon, where that's the time where we go in. We're internal at that time. And so we start there and we learn what each phase is representative of. And then we kind of just ride the energy. Now, each month does have a theme. I won't get too deep into how we come up with that, or it all has to do with astrology, and depending on where the other planets are lining up, we have a theme that takes place each month. So last month, for example, was called the Ice Moon, and this is a name given to the moon by the indigenous community, and it's called the Ice Moon because it's the time where most things are frozen over, so we're seeing ice, but energetically, emotionally, what we're feeling is what's underneath that ice. It's got this desire to break through. And so in last month's moon cycle, we broke through with a lot of emotions that we hadn't realized were lurking just underneath the surface. This month, really cool. Last month was, it was awesome. This month we're working through, it's called the worm moon or the seed moon. So it's starting to get to be time for planting. So the worm moon, what that means is that the ground is beginning to soften. So the worms are beginning to come up. Opportunity, right? If you want to see it as that way. Opportunity is beginning to rise and the ground is softening. And the birds are now going to signal to us that the worms are here because they're going to be coming now and taking and plucking from this ripe earth that we now have. So for us energetically in this month, we've just begun because the new moon just happened, so we've just started, and we're definitely going to be looking to pluck those opportunities this month as the earth melts and ripens around us.
Wow. So a good opportunity right now to stand in your truth and to get rid of those opportunities and be who you want to be and really be
get clear right now on how you want to feel. Because once you know that, when you know how you want to feel, you're going to know what actions to take that make you feel that way, right? It's like a little GPS, your intentions.
I like that. GPS, you need to copyright that. That's a second you need to copyright some things. The GPS of your intentions, I love that. You heard it here. Amanda Perrone, copyrighting. Okay? Now let's just see questions coming through. We do need to wrap up here in just a second. And to just accentuate on the moons there, if you want to find out more information about Amanda's moon groups and all this wonderful work she does with people, you can go with to risewithamanda.ca, is it, or .com?
.com. Yep, .com.
Risewithamanda.com. You can go and check out, and I'm sure you can chat to Amanda offline. So have a double check here on the questions. A few people saying thank you. Standing in your authenticity, standing in your truth is something that I absolutely want to do. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your story. And it's very obvious, I don't know, I'm the host here, and I'm going to obviously glorify you, Amanda, but it's very, very clear you're the host, and I'm sure to our participants, and please raise your hand if you agree here, that you're obviously very highly affected by other people standing in their truth as well, because that, yes, and people are raising their hands here, and I know the few people on the call also know you and have been highly affected by you, but it's very clear to other people that you take great power in other people standing in their truth, being their authentic self, being honest with themselves, and really living the life that they desire and deserve.
Deserve, thank you, because you do deserve it. We all do.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, it's been an absolute pleasure. I want to talk to you more, and
please, this was so fun.
That coffee, and you can be honest whether you want to meet me or not.
Yeah, of course.
Risewithamanda.com if you want to speak to Amanda more on this topic. And of course, there'll be a short survey after this session as well. Amanda, thank you so much for taking time out of your family to spend with us. And thank you to all our participants for contributing with questions and the raising of the hands as well. Very blessed to have you all join us here on this seminar. So until next time, Amanda, and everyone joining us, we'll see you again.
Thanks. All right, bye everyone. Thank you so much.